now, and then we'll just see. I need to make sure that everything is muted.
1 o'clock.
Okay. Whew. I just hit mute, but okay, good. We're muted on YouTube and we are live. And hey guys, welcome to the ASC. Gary, can I hear you?
Yeah.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to change the gallery view so you can both see us both. Welcome to the ASC webinar series number 7. It's Gary and Apryl, of course. We just did our ASC success quickie and then hopped on here, and we're going to continue the conversation to talk about the theme that we have been sharing. And I want to start by saying, despite everything that's happening and all the craziness that's happening in the world, does anybody realize that today is the International Day of Happiness? So happy Happiness Day.
Hey. Yes.
Now, you guys are probably like, okay, who cares? But we have some amazing stuff that we want to share today to kind of instill positivity. And we know that, this might not be like the usual, like, what's up type of webinar that you would hope it would be because of everything that's going on in the world. So we don't want to necessarily disregard some of the craziness, because I know that Gary, just as of last night, his whole state is on lockdown, and I wouldn't be surprised if many states will follow soon after. We've had a ton of conversations with a bunch of those of you who are in the ASC and anybody who's watching this on YouTube. There's a lot of conversations and a lot of fear and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion. And it's not easy to be living in this day, in this time, in this era. But, it's really, really difficult because in these times, negativity can definitely weigh on us and prevent us from truly being happy, prevent us from being productive and just staying sane. And so we want to impart some words of encouragement and wisdom over the next hour, to share some really good strategies on how we deal with all of this, not to try to ignore it, but how we can actually be proactive and take care of ourselves and try to be as happy as we can during this time. But yeah, Gary, do you have any other stuff that you want to share for our little intro?
No, actually, yes, I'll share one thing. You do such a great job of just like laying it all on the line.
I should let you go first next time.
No, it's all good. Don't even trip. This is, even though it is challenging, there are a lot of benefits to focusing on your own happiness. And we're not saying that you need to ignore whatever feelings you're having. Matter of fact, by doing that, it allows you to get back to happy faster. And we're going to share some of the science behind why it's important to make this a priority, even though you may not feel like it. So, yeah.
Do we maybe want to start with like just an exercise that both of us can do, and then whoever's watching this, because we have to get ourselves in some sort of like centered mindset to receive some of this information sometimes. So we're going to just do a little something to get us grounded, get us ready to receive some positive vibes and information.
Yeah. So one thing, so I was thinking about like, what would be an interesting, like sort of icebreaker focusing on happiness. And a friend of mine, she had some cards. They're called Cards for Connection. And they're like our other friend, Jan, who has Deep Conversations. And I just pulled one of her cards at random. I have a whole bunch of her cards that she gave me. I don't have a full, but I have a whole bunch that she gave me the last time we were hanging out. Mm-hmm. And the one that I pulled is perfect for today. And so I'm going to say it out loud. And if you want if you're watching this live or on the replay, if you want to answer what it means to you in the comments, please do. Apryl and I, we will answer it live. And the question is this: when I want to feel more joy, I do what? Fill in the blank. So, give you a second to think about that.
Yeah, I think we will do that once you post next Friday.
Okay. I'll go first. I have something.
Yeah. Okay.
So, a few things for me. One, I tend to be a very sort of high energy type person. So, if I'm moving my body in any sort of way, whether it's like sort of running, jumping, stuff like that, that works for me. Also, just sometimes it's just a quick phone call with a good friend, and it's like nothing on the agenda other than just like catching up. And it's interesting, given the current situation, I've had a lot of those with people I haven't talked to in a long time, and those have been extremely helpful. So, what do you got, April?
Yes, I love that too. And I've definitely been, people have been texting me. And I think in a busy world, we're so used to just doing the quick thing. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but after I dealt with the initial, like, okay, your kids are going to be home, your husband's going to be home, everybody is going to be working in the house all at the same time, and this is going to be the new normal for an indefinite period of time. I was finding myself every time somebody texted me, I was like, you know what, I'm going to just try to call them. So I almost never FaceTime ever. And whenever anybody sent me a text, I was like, let me just, we're not really as busy anymore. I mean, we might be busy trying to just figure stuff out, but we are not running ourselves to the point that we normally do. And so, yeah, I've had a ton of calls. When I was thinking about how I was going to answer this question, I just think about, like, I love to sing, whether or not I'm good or not. I enjoy listening to music. Music moves me, and I've probably said this multiple times. But when I want to feel more joy, I have to find. I love music, but I need to find positive music, and sing along with it, and just kind of let it take over my mind and my body, and just immerse myself in that emotion. And that is where I find my joy. So,
Yay!
and we would love to. And whether you're watching this on a replay or whatnot, you want to feel free to take some time to think about what you can do to feel more joy. Of course, feel your feelings. You have every right to feel what you're feeling, but when you're ready to start moving, that's a great question to ask. And Gary, just because you brought that up, I was like, what else could I turn to? And I don't have any question decks. I do, but they're a little bit more different topics. But one of the things that I've been doing in some of the conversations that I've been having with people virtually, and with members in the ASC, is and we do this a lot. Is I've got these cards that are called the Rebel deck. This is kind of like your tarot cards for, but with a kick. So it's not so serious. And I figured, after asking that question, should we pull a card from this oracle with attitude and just see what they have to share? So this is going to be just like the question that we're asking this deck is, what information do we need to know right now? And just be prepared for some attitude, and we'll just see if it's in line with what we need to hear. And we can all interpret it in a different way. So Gary, since you're with me here, can you pick a color of card? I'm gonna just, it's pink, orange, purple,
Pink.
or
Pink.
blue? Pink.
Pink.
Do you want
right there? Yep.
this
No,
one?
over one. No,
Oh,
over one.
I was
Yeah,
like,
right there.
I'm reading it backwards. Okay, let's see what this one has to say. So there's words on each side of the card. I feel like I just pulled this, but this is the one that is saying it's time to let go. I will interpret that to be time to let go of the negativity And then it tells you to, making sure my kids aren't around, move the fuck on. All right. So, do you interpret anything else from that, Gary?
Yeah, a lot. So let go of the way that things used to be.
Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of like, we're in this new normal of like, all right, yeah, this is how it is. So
Not anymore.
not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And holding on to that, I feel like in some cases causes a lot of resentment and does affect your happiness. So there we go.
Love it. Awesome. I
And by the
wrote that
way,
down.
Tammy, who is watching us live, um, she said music, petting a dog, walks, chats with friends. That's what brings her joy. So
Oh,
thank
hey,
you,
Tammy.
Tammy, for that.
Yeah. Sorry, we're like monitoring like 4 different chats.
Right? Exactly.
Awesome. So happy to have you here. Okay.
So
Um,
let's
yeah, which way do we want to start?
let's start with some of the science
Okay,
behind it.
cool.
Of
I'll let you go.
yes, it is the International Day of Happiness. Despite all that's going on, we want you to focus on happiness. And so I want to throw down just some stats on why it is important to focus on that. So, the old way of thinking is, oh, it's all about IQ, and some recent studies, it showed your IQ, like, so as far as your technical knowledge, has, you know, right now it's only to 20 to 25% of your job success. 75% of it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It's all about your, PQ, as some people call it, emotional IQ. Um, and they say that happy people tend to make, a lot more. They tend to be a lot more successful. Um, and so that's why it's important to focus on that. Now, we're not saying that, oh, you just need to be Pollyanna and just be oblivious of everything that's going on. No, that's not the case. Um, Researcher Sean Acor, who's we're a fan, both of us are a fan of a lot of his work. He focused on positive psychology. He was saying instead of having rose-colored glasses where you just see everything is just happiness, is rose-tinted glasses, and in that case, you're more intentional about it. And so here's another, thing about sort of happiness and negativity and things like that is that um, for every negative action, it takes 3 to 4 positive actions to counterbalance that. And the reason for that is that our brains are wired for negativity. It's kept us alive, and we will spot them more often than not. And to get back to baseline, and so this is called the Losada line. It's this 3-to-1 ratio um, of like 3 positive things to counteract 1 negative thing. And they also say high performing teams have a 6-to-1 ratio. So um, again, just some more data just to support why happiness and a focus on happiness is going to be better for you in the long term. Yeah. So April, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so we all kind of acknowledge that there's a lot of negativity out there, and for all of these statistics that Gary has shared, it's just because it carries so much more weight than positivity does. Why do you think that the media always focuses on the negative? It's because it it picks up so much attention. Sometimes people want to hear about the conflict, and I think that that's just how we're wired, and we can't necessarily disregard that. But the way that media is focused on what drives the dollar, and what's more catchy, it is the negativity.
Yep.
And but the result of that is the fact that it becomes the way that we live, right? And so because the power of negativity is so strong, we have to work so much harder to counterbalance that. I was telling Gary before we hopped on here today that this morning I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, and it's funny because there's a lot of negativity on Facebook in general, but now we're kind of reduced to only being able to connect with each other through social media and what's out there in the media. So, of course, everything's negative. And I found a post that one wasn't just political, but it was also about the coronavirus. So it was like the two things lumped together. And I went down this rabbit hole of just watching, somebody was stating their opinion, and then um, the next person was like, well, what you don't understand is this, basically trying to make the person posting see their point, and it just escalated into this conflict that I then was like wanting to jump. They were talking about how Trump said, called the coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, the Chinese virus, and how that's offensive to Chinese people and all this stuff. And they were talking about how the Chinese are offended by this and whatnot, and meanwhile neither of them were Chinese, or nor Asian, and it kind of went into all these directions, and there was so much negativity, and I got to the point, and I'm like literally like just trying to wake up, and I'm starting to feel heated by just choosing to read this in the first place, and I wanted to chime in, and I wanted to do it with so much love, but then I don't know. I just got to the point where I had written already this whole long thing, and I read through some of the comments, and it started to get better towards the end, but there were a lot of comments, and a lot of people want to voice their opinion, and they should be able to. But it's just amazing how we're in such a negative environment right now that that's really all that can come out of our mouths. So we need to be a little bit more proactive in trying to be positive and acknowledging that everybody's struggling, that there's half of, maybe all, if not all, of the country is shut down right now, and kids are at home, and parents who typically work outside the house are being forced to work inside their houses. And maybe that's great for people who are entrepreneurs working from home and homeschool their kids, but this is a different normal for everybody else who doesn't do that. And so we need to really, as we were mentioning in our quickie earlier, that we need to stay open-minded with each other, because we all have different viewpoints, and because the default is to go negative, we have to try even harder to respect each other in this time. And we need positivity, because people are dying, people are getting infected. News is very up in the air. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that instills a lot of fear. And if
I think April's frozen, or she's meditating. Um, if you can still hear us, Tabby, just let me know in the comments. This is amazing, by the way. Talk about just being flexible. She's going to come back in just a second, everyone. So sorry for the for the interruption. All right, cool. So we're moving on. April will be back in just a moment. And so just want to talk about a little bit more of the science behind all of this and how this can be a practice for this, for you. So again, this comes from Sean Acor. When you train your brain to attach more positives to each situation, um, it will improve your brain's flexibility and increase your ability to find and pursue your most valuable reality in all kinds of situations. Because at the end of the day, you can look at the same thing and see 3 or 4 different things, and they all can be true. And so an activity that I'd like to invite you all to do, and by the way, April sent me a text. She's fine. She's on her way back. And so we're just going to roll through it. But an activity that you can do is the following. You can pick any sort of object, and for like 30 seconds, start to describe as many descriptors to that object. You get 1 point for every negative descriptor and 3 points for every positive descriptor. And April is back. There she is. Gary just kept on rolling. Hello, April.
I don't know how this is looking, but if
I see you.
everyone can look, my computer just died. No, it's trying to connect. So sorry about that technical difficulty.
It's all
I
good.
forgot what I was saying.
I just kept rolling, and I was talking about a game that people can play as a way to test and start to showcase their more positive descriptor. Oh, April came back. Hello, there you are.
Am I back? I'm back on. Can you? I'm calling from my phone now, so I don't know how the video looks or whatnot, because my entire computer just decided it wanted to go kaput. That's the first time that's happened. So I'm gonna just try to wing this here and be flexible, right?
It's all good. Cool. April, do you mind putting it on gallery view?
I don't know if can I do that? I don't know what it looks like right now.
It just looks like you.
Oh, okay. How does it look right now?
It's just you.
It's just me.
Yeah, it's all good. We will fix it. All right.
Oh, geez. All right, I'm just afraid that if I think my computer is just completely not connected, and if I don't want to hit, it says like,
now it's just me.
oh, is it just you now?
It's cool. We'll move on. We'll keep going. The show must go on. So what I said prior to April jumping back on, I was talking about the benefits of practicing positivity and how it can train your brain to be more flexible. And a really cool game, and April can hear, and she'll chime in just a second, is, I'll describe it one more time. You take just any sort of object and you just describe it as many different descriptors as you can. 30 seconds. You get 1 point for every negative description and 3 points for every positive. And here's an example. And I love for you to, do it yourself and score yourself and see how it works. But for example, you can, and this is probably something that we can all relate to, the object is your overflowing email box. And so what we got is, overloaded, stress, connection, oh, +3, business opportunities, oh, another +3, addiction, 1, opportunity for praise, boom, key to job success, 3, invitations for lunches, 3, amazingly fast, 3, a tool, 3, never ending, 1, dopamine rush, 3, record of victories, 3, new ideas, 3. And you can do, something like the objects, dishes in the sink. A lot of work. 1, messy, pain in the butt, 1, never ending, 1, not fun, 1, chance to feel productive. Ooh, 3, opportunity to win points, 3. And so with this experiment, you might be wondering, like, why did you get any points at all for negative descriptors? Since we are trying to increase our positive genius, this is, what was I going to say? I'm looking at my notes right here. So if you have too many negatives, that can be a distraction, but having some can actually be helpful. That's why it's in that ratio of having 3 to 1. So I'd like to invite you to do the same. Pick an object and look at what your score is, and if you want to share it in the comments, that's great. But it's all about trying to train yourself. Oh, Raj, hey Raj, cool. So we are going to keep moving on. April, she will be back eventually, but since we talked about why it's important to focus on happiness, and we shared some of the science, and we got you to realize that it is a practice. And so there are some things that have a better benefit over others. So like anything, we like you to experiment with them and let us know what you think. And the first thing, this comes again from Sean Acorn. He calls this noise cancellation. So our brain is always absorbing information. Matter of fact, our brain absorbs 150 bits per second. And I don't know how they came up with that, but that is like how much information that we are absorbing at any one time. And a lot of it is outside of our control. And as a way to get more of that positive in than negative, he has an exercise called noise cancellation. So if you are familiar with noise cancellation headphones, what happens is waves come in, and the opposite waves. Oh, April is back. And here's my son Garrett. So we have a full house. And there's a little bit of echo. I don't know, April, do you have the speakers on? I'm going to talk again. All right, cool. Nope. We have a still. Yo. All right, we are moving on. All right, so April is frozen. She will come back here shortly. Noise cancellation. So with noise cancellation headphones, you have the outside noise, and what the headphones are doing, they're emitting the opposite waves, and as a result, it cancels out. So as a way to cancel out a lot of the noise in your own life, which will lead you to like that higher positive ratio, what you can do is have a practice of being intentional about that. And so some of the things that you could do is, I would say, like if you were able to drive around somewhere, how can you go like maybe 5 or 10 minutes without any sort of noise at all? Turn off the radio, nothing. Since you're at home, maybe for the first hour, just nothing, complete silence. These are things that you can do to increase your happiness. And decrease the negativity, which gives you a greater chance for success. So moving on to some other practices that you can do. And April sent me a text, and I'm just going to tell her it's all good. It's all about being flexible, right? The next thing on our list as far as practices, gratitude. Studies show that with any of these practices, you can go, especially over a 30-day period, you can go from a high-level pessimist to a mid-level pessimist in 30 days of all these practices. So the next thing is gratitude, taking 2 to 3 minutes at the beginning or end of your day and just making a list of 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. Now, what this is doing, just like with all the other things, it's training your brain to start to see the positivity. So if you've done any of those, I'd love to have you. Oh, Raj, thank you for the noise cancellation. Love it. Yes, let's see the line. Yes, yep, you were spot on. We were talking about that earlier, and I feel like I'm always touching my face. This should be a little bingo of every time Gary touches his spoon, you get a little check. So gratitude is a practice. Another one is meditation. Now for me, I think I've been meditating now for the last 5 years. Now I've always had a challenge with meditation. I just thought that it just wasn't something for me. And what I did as a way to help me get into that, I had to make it even more simpler. And so I made it a practice every day for 2 minutes. The moment I woke up, I set a timer and I just focused on my breathing. And every time like my thoughts drifted off, I would just like, oh, all right, I'm thinking. And when the timer went off, I was done. Now, some days were better than others. And I did that for 30 days and it got a lot easier. Studies show that when you can meditate and you can train your brain to meditate, you actually increase the size of your brain, and it gives you the ability to, when things get a little bit stressful, things get a little bit chaotic, you can start to realize and see things from a different perspective. So that is the next practice, meditation. Next on our list is, I like to call it like a reverse gratitude, letting someone know how much they care. And so I'd like to invite you all right now, if you're open to this, is to take out your phone or whatever and send someone a message, just a random person a message, and just let them know how much they care, how much they mean to you. Do it right now. And the fact that you're doing that, you probably feel a little bit good. And guess what? They're going to feel good. Now, imagine if you did that every day. Now, I think April's back.
I think I'm back. Oh my gosh.
Oh, hey, April.
Talk about like, not wanting to be happy right now. I think that we overloaded our internet. It's the sad part of everything that is happening, and I'm not really sure how this is going to impact the live stream. But
It's cool. We're still going. Raj is on now. He's been chatting. Tammy's on. So we've been moving on. I've been going through the practices.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm gonna get resituated. So you keep talking, and then I'll see where you're at.
So basically, I invited everyone to take out their device and send someone a message to someone of how much they appreciate them. So yeah, we went through the daily practices, talked about the science, about all of that, and how if you can do that in 30 days, if you're like a high level pessimist, you can go to like a mid-level to low level pessimist. So, no sound. Tammy says no sound. Can you hear me, April? You can still hear me. Okay, cool. All right. Hopefully everyone else can hear me still. And so wanted to know, in the comments, what are some things that you do? What are your practices? Do you have practices? Are you intentional about it? Or is it just, thank you, Raj. Or is it just haphazard? So, okay, cool. Let's see what we got. Oh, Tammy says, there you are. All right, we're back. All right, cool. So yes, that is where we are as far as the strategies. April, can you hear me? And would you like to talk?
Yes.
Would you like to talk about your practices?
I had to reload all of my stuff, and I was like, what? I had to like restart my computer. Okay, so you're at the daily practices. Yeah, I think, okay, so he already probably talked about, did you talk about the gratitude and the meditation and the kindness notes? Okay. One daily practice that I think I saw, actually an old friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while, was not just practicing this gratitude and doing the meditation and all that, but almost sharing it outward, right? Because going back to where I was a while ago, talking about how we could counteract, that we need to be very proactive about counteracting the negativity that shows up online, is to push it out into the world. One of the things that I decided that I was going to do after I had my pity party about just what is going on in life is this idea that I know that I can be a beacon for positivity. And so how can I do that in my own way? And for me, because I was saying earlier at the beginning of the webinar that music is a way that brings me joy. And I know that at least for some people, it does for them as well. So I can take one of my own challenges of something that I'm already working on, which is learning how to play the ukulele and sharing my progress over the next 40 days, because who knows how that might be, how long some of us are holed up in our houses, and sharing that with them so that it counteracts, you know, at least a third of the post of a coronavirus post, or a third of a political post, or whatever goes on there. And I'm also thinking about trying to share some positive, even if it's a negative post, how can I shift the conversation? So actually taking initiative to help redirect conversations to something more positive, and not doing it from anger, right? Because if you blame people for sitting in that angry place, you're only going to be met with more negativity, right? So figuring out ways to share love, or to redirect the conversation, or to stop the conversation that is negative. Those can be daily practices if you are going to brave the social media storm, and do your part to try to shift the narrative a little bit. So that's all I have to add.
Love that. And now you may be thinking, creating a habit on positivity, especially if it's not something that you're intentional. And I like to share a simple way of doing that. Researcher BJ Fogg, he wrote this amazing book called Tiny Habits, and he had been talking about tiny habits for, like, I don't know, the last 10 years or so. And show hands, how many people use Instagram? Anyone? I do. How many people find themselves using Instagram a lot? Maybe more so than often, but like, it's an easy thing to do, right? Like, compared to most. Now, the reason why Instagram seems like an overnight success, where they weren't the first social platform to allow you to share photos, but they followed what is called the Fogg behavior method, and now people are addicted to it. So it's a very similar process. So I'm going to draw a chart, and I'm going to help you understand how you can take anything. And so another thing with happiness is, if you're learning how to do something, that's going to increase your happiness. So in this chart, we have the vertical and we have the horizontal. So the vertical is motivation, and the horizontal is your ability. Now, we have this curve here. Now, so if, in order to be able to do something reliably, you have to be above this action line right here. So say, for example, you've heard us talk about happiness in these practices, and you have high motivation to want to do it. Well, if it is hard for you to do, so this is easy, this is hard, this is low motivation, high motivation. So if you're highly motivated, but it is hard to do, you're going to fall under the action line, which means that you are less likely to do it. And just the interesting thing about motivation and inspiration, they're like our fair weather friends, which they come here and there and then they disappear. Now, you can beat yourself up, and then maybe you might do it a little bit, but you won't be consistent. So what you got to do is you have to make it so easy to do. And think about any sort of activity that you want to make a practice. You should think about, like, all right, what is the behavior that I want to do? And how can I make it so simple to do? And I shared the story about my daily meditation practice when I first started doing it. I made it so easy to do is the moment I woke up, my phone was right there. I set a timer for 2 minutes. Boom, it was easy. If that was too hard to do, 30 seconds. It doesn't matter. The main thing is to start the process. And once, the interesting thing about this is just like compound interest, it starts to build on each other. So whatever you want to do, my invite to you is, what can you do to make it even simpler? And this is the challenge. Most people, you probably heard the quote, "Go big or go home," or people feel like, what, if I'm doing something like big, that means it's meaningful. Well, the thing is, that is not sustainable. And if you want to make something a lasting a lasting habit, you need to make it as simple as possible. You know, it was really interesting. We were talking about April's ukulele practice, and she, you know, she made it extremely simple. As you can see, her ukulele's behind her. So if she wanted to practice, she can probably grab it at any moment. And in some cases, the ukulele is right next to her. Again, super simple. And for someone, so say you know, saw Apryl and you were inspired, like, oh, I want to learn ukulele. This is where most people fail. They think, all right, I need to practice 30 days. I need to do all these things. That is not going to be sustainable. I want to invite you, what if you had it right next to you and you just strummed, you know, one string every day, and you just get a habit of just picking it up and doing something. This can go for any habit. I was working with someone trying to get them to floss more. They knew they wanted to, but the ability was challenging. And so we just started getting them to floss one tooth. So that may seem so ridiculous, but it becomes the habit, and then most likely, oh, they'll floss another tooth. And so there is a formula for this, which is called BMAP. So we have B, which stands for behavior, equals motivation, which is the M, ability, which is the A, and prompt, which is the P. And so most of the time, people think that they need more motivation. They need positive motivation or negative motivation. So this is for all of you people with spouses where you want them to do something and they never do it. You probably think, oh, I need to like give them a little bit more motivation, nag them more. Most likely, it is not the M. It's probably the A, which stands for the ability, or the P, which stands for the prompt. So you can go and say, do you know how to do that? Most likely they do. And then, do you have an easy prompt to prompt you to do it? So this is something that is key for behavior design, and behavior design is the key to starting happier habits. So like to get your thoughts and bring Apryl back in. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I love this, and I think it's one of those things where it also, I know that this is a conversation about happiness, but it's just as much a conversation about habits, which is a very fundamental thing that some of us tend to forget about. And I was laughing when you were talking about flossing, and flossing has always been a struggle for me. But I also know that I love checking boxes. And so what I started to do was my usual, I had a to-do list for just my morning habits, and it was as silly as brush your teeth, floss, get dressed, wash your face, and all of those things, because the feeling of being able to check those things off. And I kept the list small, and now it's like a list of 20 things that I have to do in the day. But now I don't even really need the checklists because it's become clockwork. So something like meditation or something like your own happiness practice, whatever that is, breathing exercises, if you can make it a habit, these types of things will not be as shaken when life throws you a curveball like it is right now, right? Um, for some people who, are used to the people who are probably taking this whole coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, um, are probably struggling the most. The people who are probably struggling the most are the people who have had to adjust their habits completely because it's not what they're used to. Not to say that they won't be able to get there, but it's going to take them a little bit more time, right? Entrepreneurs are like, okay, well, I was working at home anyways. Having to stay home is not that big of a deal. But you also know that people who do go into the office every day, this is a challenge for them. And not to say that it's right or wrong, but it's just different. So giving grace in the adjustment of the habits is definitely something that can really, allow the negativity to not fester as long. and people then working parents who are still like not only just, working at home, but then having to help their kids with e-learning. It's definitely a challenge. And so if you can figure out, take a step back and, take that deep breath and say, okay, this is the reality for now. How can I get back into a new habit? And who knows, by the time they get into this habit, everything will hopefully go back to normal, and then you'll have to make that adjustment again. But it's pretty crazy.
Cool. There we go.
There you go.
Yes, and we got through our whole list pretty quickly, April.
We did. I think that there might be one more thing that I want to add. And
Please,
of course,
please do.
those of you who are following along, and I know in our YouTube chat we've got Raj and Tammy. If you guys have any questions about anything that you're struggling with, to just stay positive, feel free to share that so that we can answer. But one of the things, I'm trying to find my notes again. I was like rattled because this has been the first time that I think that I've dropped in the middle of a live stream. I like went to my kids. I'm like, "Are you on a FaceTime? Stop talking to your friends." I think that more than ever now, and I know that I've said this, but I'm going to just reiterate the importance of this, is the fact that we can choose to be victims to this whole situation, to any situation. I mean, because we will encounter other challenges later in life. But if we can proactively take the stance of, yes, I'm going to feel the feels of the struggle, but I'm going to do my best to try to get back to creating a new normal and giving others grace as we all navigate whatever situations. This is what's going to be needed in order to shift to a happier world. I know that some people don't want to deal with it. They want to hide in their hole, and that's totally okay. But if you are in a place where you feel that you're a little bit more positive than others, what can you do to instill that positivity, or to just kind of keep pushing it forward, right? This is all about generosity and being giving. Sometimes, now Gary dropped off. We are having issues today. Let me just double check and make sure that everything is going. But and he's back. This is the day of they're trying to test us, Gary.
No.
Yeah, I think that we have so much power and so much control, and it's really, really hard. I don't know what you think about this, Gary, but I think that sometimes people tout social media as like, this is the place where, people want to show their best stuff. This is the place where, people want to show, like, they don't want to show people the bad things. And I think that it's important to share a little bit of both, but I also know that just know how you're contributing to, other people's energy when you're doing it, right? Because sometimes I will share like a struggle that I'm having, and it's exactly those people who are like not in my situation that can lift me up, and that's what I need. But just be mindful that the positive energy you put out can impact people in a positive way, whether you realize it or not, because people won't acknowledge and appreciate the happiness as much as they will feed into the negativity. But if you're feeling low, and just know that your energy can carry weight, whether you mean to or not. And again, I'm not saying don't feel the feelings that you're feeling, but just know that the energy that your emotions bring is very contagious. And so just be mindful about your shares. You absolutely have the right to share whatever it is that you want to share, but just understand and take responsibility for the weight that will carry. and be mindful of, you might be on cloud nine and other people might be struggling. So how can you be sensitive to that?
Yes. All right. Nope. April froze. Okie dokie. So I think this is a sign that we're just going to end it. April brought up some really good points about how can you do your part and take care of each other. And so this is another webinar. Please forgive us for all the issues that we were doing, that we had. It's the new normal and we just got to be flexible. That's a good sort of insight into our next month's theme, which is flexibility. And